One thing that I've noticed about EA is that every year they follow somewhat of a pattern. You can see where they want to start focusing more by watching what they do during the year. Ways that they update the current game have oftentimes been a bit of a teaser of what you can expect them to focus heavily on in the upcoming game. So today we're going to talk about what EA did this year and what it projects for them doing in Madden 20. We're going to talk about the good things they did and also the bad things that they did. And quickly, let me just preface this video with saying, while they did do some good things this year, Madden 19 is by far one of the worst Maddens we've ever had. Madden 18 was very bad as well. It's kind of splitting hairs on which one was worse, but they're both very high up on the list of bad Madden. So even though they did some good things this year, the game was bad, but we still can't turn a blind eye to what was good and what could project for a better Madden 20. And also, I'm not going to cover obvious things and just say like, oh, the gameplay was bad this year. That goes without saying. The gameplay was horrendous this year. I'm not going to say, oh, the franchise lacked features. That goes without saying. We know franchise lacked features. We're not going to talk about the obvious things that were good or bad about the game. Really want to focus on the little things that kind of go overlooked, both good and bad, and how that projects for Madden 20. So let's get into it. We'll start with the good because I like to get the positive stuff done first. We'll talk about the bad a little bit later. So number one this year was player likeness being updated throughout the year. Now I know there's a lot of people that could care less about things like player likeness, equipment, tattoos, players being the authentic to themselves. A lot of people only care about the gameplay, and that's fine because gameplay is by far the most important part of the game, but it's not the only important part about the game, and player likeness was one of the areas that they really focused on this year. They focused on it a little bit in the beginning of Madden 18 as well, but you saw them focus more on it this year, and that really projects as a positive thing for Madden 20 because you saw, players getting updated, like their hair getting updated, their players getting tattoos added. We've only seen Odell and Colin Kaepernick with their tattoos, but this year we saw Mike Evans get his added, we saw Derek Carr get his tattoos, and there might have even been another player or two. People get their equipment updated. Alvin Kamara got his turf tape, and little details like his nose ring was added. And while you might say that's not a big deal, that still projects good going forward. This is something NBA Live actually does a really good job with, as does 2K overall. 2K is really good with the authenticity of their players. NBA Live is good at updating them throughout the years to replicate what they're currently wearing and how they look, and that obviously is the same company that makes Madden, so it looks like they're starting to do that too, but not just in how they look in the equipment, because we saw, like I said, people get their Jordan cleats, certain gloves, helmets, and face masks. We saw a lot of people get these updates, but it's not just about looks. Think about how they perform on the field. We saw them focus on this when the game came out this year with some of the new things like the QB having their signature, animations, like Cam Newton, the way he points, Tom Brady, Eli Manning, when they call audibles. The animations that they did were what they do in real life. We saw, in terms of running styles with heavier backs versus elusive backs, you actually felt the difference this year. And while that still needs a lot of work, it's still, those baby steps look positive for Madden 20 because it seems like they're finally starting to focus on getting these players to be their authentic selves. Once they start getting better with how these players move, their running styles, like Alvin Kamara is going to run totally different than a Todd Gurley, and how certain receivers run routes. When they start focusing more on authenticity, that's going to be a huge win for the game, and we've saw them focus on that this year, so it looks like they're going to be big on that going into Madden 20. That's a big positive. New plays being added. We saw them add new plays and formations this year. Now, while this was somewhat of a fail because when they added the split backs formation, the run plays were kind of useless because the handoffs were very slow, but the positive of this is that they actually did it. And I know for a fact that this is something that they see for the future of Madden, of where a team's running a play in real life. It could be a trick play, or it could just be some new concept, new formation they pull out, and they can add this in the game and get it into the game just a few weeks later. I know that is where the future is going for Madden, just how we update games in general now. So we should see more of that in Madden 20. We should see the game launch with new plays, but we should definitely see them adding more plays throughout the year, which is definitely great for the gameplay. Another positive this year that they did that looks good for Madden 20 are the new events in Ultimate Team. Events are becoming a big thing in all of gaming now, where you have like a reward structure attached to a 48-hour event where you have like special rules or a special objective to complete, and then you get rewards back for this. But it also makes the game more fun because Madden can get boring, especially online. You run into a lot of the same plays. People play the same way. Even when you win, sometimes it's boring. It's not that fun. But with the house events rules that they put in Ultimate Team this year, it made playing the game more fun because you had special rules like, certain touchdowns were worth more points. If you had, some events you had 2-point conversions were worth like 8 points. You had, an event where you couldn't call hot routes and audible, you only could run stock plays, or you only had 2 downs to pick up a first down, and this makes the game more fun. It adds a little bit more of an arcade feel style to the game, adding these different rules. I definitely think they're going to build on that in Madden 20 and just have some crazy stuff happening with these 48-hour events, and that is a big plus. Another thing that was good this year that looks good for Madden 20 is they had a strong focus on bug fixing. Now, there is a bad side to this that we will talk about in the bad section of the video, but the fact that they did, try to clean up as many bugs as possible, as quick as possible, is huge, because if you're more of an old school Madden gamer, like when the game was shipped, that was the game you got. If there was a bug in the game breaking, you had to just deal with it. You had to find a way around it. It was just, you worry about it now. It's in your hands. And that's not the case anymore. They definitely try to fix these bugs, and that doesn't just mean, broken plays, but I mean, there's bugs in franchise mode, long shot, ultimate team. Sometimes it could be bugs in the menus, just little things that hamper the game, and they did a good job at cleaning up as much of that as possible, as often as possible. So that's good for the future, knowing that, yes, while we would like the game to ship in a better condition than it does, at least they are tackling these issues really quickly, and they're, the ones that aren't at least affecting the gameplay, they should attack those quickly because they shouldn't be there to begin with, and they're usually pretty easy to get out of the way, so that was good. Another thing this year was they actually were improving the coverages throughout the year, and yes, as bad as defense is in Madden, as bad as the AI is, I don't care what you say, the coverage in Madden is way better than what it used to be. You go back a few years, and I mean, defense was horrendous in Madden. You couldn't stop anything. If you didn't have a super fast blitz, you were just going to get picked apart up and down the field. I mean, you couldn't even shade your defense down. You didn't have multiple types of flat zones that could play different areas of the field. You didn't have, linebackers and hook zones matching crossing patterns. All of this is in the game now, and they kept improving it throughout the year. They kept, focusing on improving the match coverage and making sure, in certain coverages like a cover 3, that the hook zone was matching the crossing route when it was supposed to. Now, they still need plenty of work, don't get me wrong, especially the timing, because just because a linebacker is matching a crossing route, it doesn't matter if he's a little bit delayed in actually matching it, because then the receiver's still getting open. But the fact that they kept trying to improve this throughout the year, and they did improve it, even though it's still far from where it needs to be, that looks very well for not just Madden 20, but the future, because eventually the defense is going to get to the point in Madden where it performs how it's supposed to. Like I said, go back years and look where we are now. It is a world of difference, and that's only going to continue getting better. So the fact that they're focusing on this is definitely good, and we should only see this get better in Madden 20, even though, like I said, it definitely still has a ways to go. And the last really good thing this year is the way they rewarded players in Ultimate Team that didn't pay, because that's the biggest criticism of Ultimate Team, is it's pay to play, and it definitely is. A lot of people will spend money and just jump ahead and have the best team, but this year they actually rewarded you for playing the game. Now, if you're one of those people that don't want to grind the game at all and don't want to pay, well, then Ultimate Team just isn't the mode for you. I mean, the whole point of the game, the whole appeal of that mode is the work you put in to build your team, put your team together. If you were able to just put together the best team easily, the mode would just get boring in a couple months. There wouldn't be nothing to it. So, but this year they really rewarded the grinders, and I wouldn't even say necessarily you didn't have to super grind. Like with solo battles, you could play for 30 minutes a week, 30 minutes a day, 7 days a week. Get on for 30 minutes, knock out a couple quick games, and you're getting 150,000 coins a week for doing this. Now, if you want to put in like an hour to an hour and 15 minutes a day to actually like really try to get your highest score possible, then you were getting in the top 100, which really wasn't that hard, and you're talking about 300 to 400,000 coins a week. Look at the Blitz events that they put out. They did about 3 of those this year, and you were literally earning over 100,000 coins a day by playing a few quick games. You might have had to get on for a little over an hour, and within a 5-day span, you're earning 500,000 coins. I mean, that is just an enormous amount of coins for a little amount of work. And then they gave away more than ever so many nat cards, like high overall cards. Like every promo, damn near, you play a solo string, you get a high overall nat card. With the house rules events and things like that, you have to knock out 10 games, you get a 97 overall, a 98 overall. They did that a lot this year. They really made it easy for you to compete with the people that paid by putting in minimal effort into the game, and I think they're going to continue that in Madden 20 because that keeps people engaged and that keeps more people on the mode, which is ultimately a plus for EA. Now let's look at the bad about the game, because there definitely was some bad. Outside of the obvious things, like I said, gameplay just being terrible, but one of the bad things here was I felt that there was too many band-aid fixes this year. And what that means is, instead of fixing something the right way, or, waiting to a later point until you can fix it the right way, you kind of just put a band-aid on it. You're not really fixing it, you're just kind of trying to mask the problem, but it doesn't really actually fix it. If anything, it usually makes something else in the game worse because of it. And this is an age-old EA problem. They've done this for years, but this year, for example, contain blitzing was a problem at the beginning of the year. So what did they do? They made contains useless, which was a horrible decision, because especially with Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson, how crazy they are this year, you can't use contain. Your contain will literally just stand still and watch your QB run crazy. If you're eliminating the ability to have containment in your defense, that is terrible for a football game. That was a bad fix, and they've done this with multiple things over the years, and I wish they would stop doing it. I wish they would start weighing more heavily what actually needs to be fixed and what needs to just wait till next year, when you can put the right amount of time and resources to fix it the right way. Because while some things are annoying and not good for the gameplay, they're not game breaking, and they're things that you have to let your users get around. And this happens in every game. Basketball games, certain years there's just certain jump shots that are hard to block or hard to stop, certain dribble moves that are hard to stop. You have to let your users get around some of these things, because it's not worth fixing something if it's going to be at the detriment to the rest of your game. So I wish that they would stop with that and kind of just focus a little bit more on fixing only the things that truly need to be fixed. And that kind of goes into the next point. There were too many patches this year. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad that they're putting that effort into trying to fix the game and make the experience better throughout the year, instead of just saying, you already bought the game, it's on you now. But I think they need to dial the patches back a little bit. And I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to continue on this kind of like patch hell that they've been doing, one patch a month going into Madden 20, but I wish they would dial it back, maybe do one every 2 months, focus on fewer things, only the most important things, but actually put more time into trying to fix it a better way than just a quick fix, so that it doesn't, cause other problems in your game. And also, by focusing on fewer patches, fewer fixes, and giving it more time, you also give yourself more time to test it, so that you don't patch the game and then, oh, now there's another game-breaking bug that you just completely missed. I think they need to dial it back and just definitely be a little more focused on what they're doing and how they're fixing these things. And then the last thing bad that they really did this year was the lack of content later in the year and what. And this has kind of been an ongoing problem for a couple of years now. The content was really great at the beginning of the year. These last few months, it's been a very slow burn. They haven't really been putting a lot out, and I think they need to try to find more of a balance with this. I don't really think they will, because it seems like you got to be content heavy early in the year, because that's when most people are playing. But you can dial back some of the early content if it's going to allow you to put more stuff out at the end of the year, because people are going to complain one way or the other. But I think overall you'd rather have balance than just have one side be super heavy with content and the other side of the year, the last few months, just be very dry, and you're just giving people no reason to want to get on the game at all, because there's still plenty of people that want to get on Ultimate Team, but you're not giving them a reason to. So that's something I hope they can find a better balance with, but I really don't see it happening, because I think they care more about the beginning of the year than they do the end of the year, but that's just me. So that's it for today. That's kind of some of the early projections for Madden 20 based on what they did this year. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know in the comments below. Check out some of these other videos right here, and as always, I will see you guys next time.